What's up, you guys? John here, and in today's video I want to tell you about what string gauges I use. I get so many comments on my videos. John, what strings do you use? What brand do you use? What do you recommend for me? So I wanted to break down for you exactly what I'm playing, and I also want to let you know that it's an evolving thing for me. Over the years I've changed a lot, and this is kind of where I'm at right now, and I'll tell you how I got there. So first up, I play a lot of acoustic guitar, and on my Matins and my Martins, my main go-to gauge are these Martin Acoustic SPs. They're 13 gauge, medium, 0.013 to 0.056. And these are just great quality strings. I'm pretty happy with the consistency of them and how they sound. I do change strings a lot. I'll usually get about 1 to maybe 2 gigs out of one set of strings, and that could be 1 to 2 days that I'm changing strings. So these are my acoustic strings. If I don't have a session or I'm playing outdoors a lot, then I might push it a little bit more, maybe get 3 gigs out of a set of strings, but these are my main acoustic strings. Now, how I got at the 13s was an interesting thing. I was teaching guitar lessons at a music shop, and I had a break where I didn't have a student, and I went downstairs to change my strings in between lessons because I had a gig later and I was heading out, and I had just went downstairs and grabbed off the shelf these strings, and it was right around the time that Martin had changed the packaging. And so I just was going off the color for some reason and didn't like actually look closely at them. And I was playing 12s at the time, and I put on 12.5s. And I just changed them real quick, and then I went back to play later, and I was playing, I was like, wow, this kind of feels like I'm working a little bit harder here. And then I realized, my friend was like, hey John, you just put 12.5s on your guitar. And I was like, oh, and you know, I didn't want to just waste them and take them off and put new strings on, so I said, okay, let me just play these for a little bit and see how it goes. And then a few days later I said, you know, this is a little bit harder, but I kind of like how it feels. I like this thicker gauge. The tone was a little fatter, and so then that sort of triggered the process of me all of a sudden upping my gauge on all my strings. Now, I do sometimes like these Lifespan SP strings, which are a little bit more money, but they're treated, and I have noticed that they last a little bit longer. I haven't done the comparison as to how many more gigs I can get out of these strings versus these and the price, but maybe I'll do a video of that later. So those are my main acoustic strings, are the Martin SPs. Now on electrics, I use the Diodario EXL 145s, and these are 12 gauge, and I put these on my Tele, I put them on my Strat, and all my electric guitars. So I've got 12, 16, a 20 plain, 32, 42, and a 54. Now I do tune to standard. We've all heard about the Stevie Ray Vaughan gauges and how you know, he played really fat strings, and according to online, I was looking, you know, according to Stevie's Guitar Tech, it was 13s, you know, 0.013 to 0.15, a 19 plain, a 28 D string, a 38 A string, and a 58 low E. So you can see he's fatter on the low end and then fatter on the first string, and then a little bit lighter in the middle. So these are actually thicker on the middle strings. Like I've got a 20 plain G and his was a 19. Now I think that his tech was like compiling these together from different string gauges, so I couldn't quite get that exact gauge, and I didn't want to be buying like multiple sets and piecing them together. That just was like too much money and too much work, especially for how often that I change strings. So I opted for these. If anybody knows of a 13 gauge out there that's reasonable, let me know, and I'll see if I can try those out. But I'm pretty happy with these. Because I play a lot of acoustic and electric, I try and do just as much of both. You always hear like electric players, maybe guys that play really good electric and then they go to acoustic and it's like they're scared. Maybe they play like 9s or 10s and then they go to acoustic and it's like 12s and it's like, oh, it's way too hard, right? So I wanted to sort of bridge the gap and make playing on my electric, like, why should it be so different? And I do play like country pedal steel bends and minor third bends, 2-hole step bends with these 12 gauge. It is more work. Now, one thing, if you want to try to up your string gauge, the best thing that I did was stare it up. The worst thing to do is play 9s or 10s and then just throw 11s or these 12s on your guitar. You have to step it up slowly. So like me going from 12s to 12.5s for 6 to 8 months and then bumping it up from there like for another 6 to 8 months gives your hand a break, because you really will feel it if you're playing a lot. So stare it up, guys. Don't go crazy with that, and your fingers will feel it, you know, so you have to sort of develop the strength. But overall, the tone that I get with these, especially playing clean, is so fat and huge that I love it. Now, this might not be great for all styles of music, so you have to think about the style that you play and what's best for that. When I wanted to up my electric gauge to 12s, I was trying to find where I could buy these at just a set and try them out, and not a lot of places stock them, so I found Sam Ash had them, and I went over there and I bought like 3 packs just to try them out, and the guy checking me out was like, yeah, what are you tuning to? And I was like, standard. And he's like, oh, like you're gonna ruin your guitar, you don't know what you're doing, and this and that. And so I do have these 12s on this guitar, and everything's fine. I put them on all my guitars. The only thing I will tell you is you are putting your guitar through a little bit of trauma, like as you keep upping the gauge. So you're gonna have to adjust the truss rod, and you're gonna have to kind of set up and calibrate it to each gauge that you change. So if I were to change from now my 12s to like 9s or something, the action would probably be a little off, and possibly the intonation too. And then also like on a Strat where I have my bridge floating, I'll put a picture of this. This is what happened when I just went from 10s to 11s on my Strat. The bridge will pull up, so you're gonna have to add some extra springs in the back, and you're gonna have to level out the bridge if you want it floating to have thicker gauge strings. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this video, and like I said, these things may change. Talk to me in 5 years, I may be playing thicker strings. I may have find a brand that can do that, or I may be back to lighter gauge strings. You gotta find what works for you and what you feel comfortable with. Let me know what gauge strings you use and why it works for you in the comments below. We'll see you in the next video.